Hi there, welcome to the first week of this SGS 303 class. We'll be looking at a couple of readings this week, and what I've decided to do is to do two shorter videos, two separate videos, one for each reading. So this one is the Adler and Ansell reading, which is mostly about the British housing market, and talks about basically changes in the British housing market that have led, they suppose, to political landscape changes, right, between well, mostly voting behavior, right? Who's voting for Brexit, who's voting against Brexit. And then the two main parties, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, where are they gaining, where are they losing? I don't remember right now when this article was published, but I know that it goes up to the 2017 election. All right, so you have the 2016 is when you have the Brexit referendum in Britain. You have a general election in 2015. So let me give you the quick sort of background so that you can read this with some background knowledge. 2015, you have the general election. The Conservatives are in power, and Prime Minister David Cameron says, okay, our party, the Conservative Party, is losing, is sort of dividing itself, and has done for a long time actually, but is coming to a critical point now where we're dividing ourselves over Europe. There's people in the party who are for leaving the EU, and there's others who are for remaining in the EU within the Conservative Party. So what he says, okay, I don't want to fight an election in 2015. I don't want to fight an election on either remaining or leaving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to promise instead a referendum. If the Conservative Party win, we'll have a referendum. So of course, the Conservative Party win. This is 2015. So they win, and they set up the election, and the election's going to happen. So the referendum happens in 2016, the polls show, right, that Remain is going to win right up to the last day, and then boom, they Leave wins, right? It's a big surprise, it's a big shock. It's a big shock within Britain, but also in the European Union. People start asking, are other countries going to leave as well? Who's next? And then there follows from 2016 to 2019, basically, right, to last year. There then proceeds to be a big political debate within Britain about whether we can really leave the EU. There's a referendum, people have decided to leave, but can we really do it? Should we really do it? Maybe we should have another referendum, right, just to make sure. So that dominated British politics until the 2019 election. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now, so this is the background. What the reading is going to do is it's going to look at, okay, well, what's the role in house prices in this? Okay, because some attempt to that's the phenomenon, right? The phenomenon is Britain voted to leave the EU, which was a big deal. The phenomenon is Britain has left the European Union. Right, and that's where really it sort of reaches into this overarching phenomenon that we're talking about in this class, right? This backlash against globalization. So what's the cause of that, right? And so this first reading that we're going to do, it looks at one possible cause, right, which is change in house prices, changing the structure of the housing market in the United Kingdom. It talks about a big change in housing over the past 30 years in Britain. From a place where there was a lot of social housing owned by the government that people paid rent in back before Thatcher, right? Until Thatcher. Thatcher actually came in with the right to buy. And so she came in and says, okay, if you've lived in your council house and you've been paying rent for X amount, you can buy it off the government and you have a right to buy it. The government has to sell it to you. And you got very good deals, right? Depending on how long you've been in the house, you could get the house for very cheap under Margaret Thatcher's policy. So that on its own caused a lot of a big change in the structure of housing in Britain. But then from 2013 with the housing price boom, people get priced out of certain areas, right? So shifts start to occur in politics, right? As people move around, as some people who maybe wanted to buy houses, who maybe would have bought houses in the past, could no longer afford to. So there's those two things, right? There's the lowering of the lowering of stock of social housing, right? There's not as much social housing as there used to be, not even close. And instead, there's a lot more expensive housing. that prices some people out. So the idea is, okay, what was that shift in housing in this reading? You'll see what was that shift in housing, what did it look like, and politically, right, what has it done? And so again, just to give you, so that's where I'll probably leave it in terms of talking about the reading, but I will for the rest of this video, I'll just go over a few. Well, I'll probably skip back into the reading, to be honest, so don't turn off right now, because when I'm going to talk about the themes that I'm going to talk about here, themes that I've taken from the reading. So watch for these things when you do the reading. What I've prepared, right, basically is just a few web pages that I found. Wikipedia, I think, just maps really of election results. I've got the EU referendum results in Britain, which is actually from the BBC. Then I've got two Wikipedia maps, one from the 2015 UK election, one from the 2019 election. And that's the thing to note. So the reading goes to 2017. And so I will talk, because one of the things it says in the reading is that, look, in 2017, the Conservative Party lost in areas that were high Remain areas, because they went a little bit more Eurosceptic in 2017, not as Eurosceptic as they went in 2019. They went a lot pro-Leave in 2017, but not as much as they did in 2019 when they elected Boris Johnson as the leader, and they went very much pro-Leave. Okay, so in the reading it talks about how in 2017 they lost among some wealthier neighbourhoods, right? Some places where house prices were quite high, based on their opposition. Well, and that's why I'm giving more away about the reading now. But that's one of the reasons why, right? Is because one of the arguments that they make in there is that, look, if you're sitting on a paid-for house that's appreciating in value rapidly, you're gonna, you're a traditional Conservative voter most likely, and two, you're happy with the status quo. You're happy with the way things are. You're happy with Britain's membership in the EU. You feel like you're doing quite well, and that membership in the EU has been a good thing for you. So then, so then when the Conservative Party starts to talk about being pro-Leave, now those people start to think, well, wait a minute, things are quite good for me, and I usually vote Conservative, but maybe won't do that this time. Okay, so that's the story of 2017 that you'll hear like that and more in the reading, and so I wanted to see, like, well, can we just look at the results maps and see, does that continue into 2019? And I'm not really sure I can see, but I think we can look at some interesting maps anyway. So I'll do that. This one here, this is from the 2015 election. Remember, this is the one before the Brexit referendum. And I put this in here to give you sort of a baseline, right, because even if we don't get from these maps the precise thing that the reading is talking about in terms of house prices and the split in the Conservative vote, we don't quite get that from these maps, mostly because the Conservative Party are winning. So we don't quite get that, but we do still see this sort of top level of this phenomenon, right, of this real change in British politics. And so I'm giving you here 2015 is sort of the baseline for British politics. You've got, you'll see up in the northeast of England here, dense red, right? The red is the Labour Party, the blue is the Conservative Party, which is usually in the UK. In the US, we usually have red for the centre-right party and blue for the centre-left party, and it's switched in the UK. Labour Party starts off as a socialist party, so it makes sense that they're red, right? And the blue Conservative Party, that's more common in Europe. So anyway, so you see like a solid block of red up here in the northeast of England, and in every other sort of heavy industrial northern city. So we've got Liverpool, it will be over here, Manchester in there, Leeds, Sheffield, Bradford, big South and West Yorkshire urban centres that were, this is where the Industrial Revolution started in the world, basically, in this section here. Also, I'm from Hartlepool up here. This is where you had the first ever passenger rail. You had, steam train in the world, I'm going to claim, and that's I think the truth. A lot of coal fields in the old days, right? So heavy industry, steelworks, shipbuilding, that's up here. This is the West Midlands, right? Birmingham. So densely populated city. South Wales, again, coal mining. Down here is the traditional industry, and it's a heavy industry. And then you'll see like dotted around here, there's like dots of red. These are the cities, dots of red there. But these are more sort of, these are smaller scale cities. This is Cambridge here, Oxford's over here. So those are sort of university cities, right? So you get the more left-leaning folks in there. Bristol over here as well. So otherwise, right, we've got a sea of blue in England. So look at London. London's down here, and you see London's more of a mix, right? Which is, you've got the traditional sort of inner city sort of areas, especially in the east of London, that are poorer probably. And then you've also got the elites in London, right? That's probably represented by this blue block here. To some extent, although this is just outskirts, right? To some extent, the elites are really in here, this area, I'd say. But at least the traditional, like conservative ones. You've got the sort of more new Labour people around here as well. So they're Labour, but they're Labour for different reasons than people up in the northeast are, right? These are your more sort of socially woke, more sort of professional teachers, not socialists, although they might be social workers. That's what I'm trying to think of. Social workers and that sort of thing. Media type people, right? Are living here anyway. But you've got that mix in London, in a way that you really don't in these northern cities that are more, sort of post-industrial. I think maybe Ohio in the United States, right? Parts of industrial Ohio up in the north there along the lakes. Anyway, so that's that, and that's sort of a baseline, right? You've got the countryside is mostly conservative, right? And then you've got Scotland is almost not at all. This is the border of Scotland here. You've got one conservative there on the south of Scotland. The rest of this is the Scottish National Party, so this is a good result for them. Pro-independence, break away from England type of Scottish National Party here. And then Northern Ireland, you've got a very different party system going on there. But you've got the Ulster, the Democratic Unionist Party, I think, is the orange, right? And then the Sinn Féin, I think, is the green. I think that's right to say. But you've got the difference there between unionists, people that want to stay within Britain, and then the Irish Republicans who want to join the Republic of Ireland. So that's a different system there. All right. So that's 2015. 2016, you get the referendum, right? And so look, you can see sort of that, if you had to like compare it to this, right, you would say, okay, you kind of got some yellow, which is Remain areas. You've got some yellow, right, in Manchester and Liverpool. Not as much in the northeast, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at Labour areas, and I'm saying, did the Labour areas vote Remain and the Conservative areas vote Leave? And that's not what happened. You can see that it's not quite one-to-one comparison with this. But, it's not a million miles away. I mean, in the northeast, it is a million miles away because you'd expect a block of yellow there that you don't have. Manchester, Liverpool, it's a smaller area, but you do have Manchester and Liverpool that are both remaining. And then you've got this sort of spread out from London. London's pretty Remain, and then you've got the spread out towards the west and the south. Otherwise, Scotland, you've got Leave. Northern Ireland, you've got sort of the unionist areas are voting to Leave, and then the Republican areas are voting to Leave. To Remain. So there's that, and then this is 2019. And this is really, I think, the shift that I'm looking for, right? You see what was a solid block of Labour red up here in the northeast is very much diminished. Now, the Conservative Party haven't taken it all, but they've taken a lot of it, right? And we saw that this was a high Leave area. And so you see how this Leave Remain thing is affecting things. You also see Scotland's a lot more blue than it was, right? It had one before, now it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 constituencies turn blue. It's still fairly small, right? But compared to the Scottish National Party, but here's the Liberal Democrats coming back into Scotland, a much reduced position for the Scottish Nationalists. And then again, even in like the Manchester, Merseyside, South Yorkshire, this is Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Bradford. You've seen a lot more blue in there. This was a particular one here. I think this is I can't remember the name of it. I don't know if it's Ashington maybe or something like that, but it hadn't voted Conservative for like 100 years or something like that. So you see this big shift, especially in these industrial areas. Well, you can see in the West Midlands. Let's go back. West Midlands is more red in 2015 than it was in 2019. Oops. You know, and you've got more blue in 2019 around here, much more blue. Well, and I think it's shown better on this one here. These are the changes. So you've got all this blue here in the northeast, in the Merseyside and Greater Manchester, in South Yorkshire, and even around London a little bit. Changes to blue. You've got no changes to red as far as I can see. Oh yeah, I think this one down here in Putney, in London, and then Scottish National Party. That's the Liberal Democrats. And you see there the Brexit effect, right? Strong Leave. In strong Leave areas, Conservatives did 6% better. But look at the Labour Party. They did worse in Leave and in Remain. Right? So that suggests that something else is happening as well. Right? It's not just because the Remain areas, they went against the Conservatives, but they also went against the Labour Party. Right? And that might be because the Labour Party was sort of half and half, half in, half out, in terms of Remain and Leave. This shows you who won the Leave seats, right? Who won the Remain seats. And you see, you know, it's not straightforward, right? It's still not straightforward, which suggests that there is something else happening, right? And so this other thing, it wasn't just about the European Union. So if we go back to what we were saying about this phenomenon, right? This backlash against globalization. We can look at this and we say, look, this leaving the European Union is maybe a symptom of that backlash, right? It's not the cause of the backlash. It's something that shows us that there's a backlash happening, but it doesn't completely explain what's going on because we've got Labour and the Conservative are both winning Leave seats, although it's mostly Conservative. The Remain seats, the Conservative Party are winning some Remain seats, so it's not completely split along Brexit, which suggests to me that there's something else happening, something underneath that's maybe causing both of these things to happen, both a big swing to the Conservative Party and the Leave thing. Here's the Conservatives making gains in working class areas. This is showing, look, working class areas in 2017. This is the 100 constituencies with the most people in blue collar occupations. So in 2017, the Labour Party won a whole lot of them, and then maybe it's more 50-50. Well, look, it's not. It was 72% to the Labour, now it's 53% to Labour in 2019. So a whole swathe of blue collar people have gone towards the Conservative Party. And so you can see, if you're familiar with American politics, you can see that there's something akin here to what was happening in the United States with Trump. This is 2019, right? So this is just, you know, not quite, maybe a year and a half ago, right? So, or a year and a bit ago. Is that right? Yeah, a year and a half. Because it was well, when was it? Anyway. There you go, working class areas. This is one theme that we'll sort of look at throughout, not just in Britain, right, but in some of the other readings that we'll do. Are working class areas going more Conservative, and why? There we go. All right, I'll end that. That should give you some good, nice context, and you've seen the maps, and you sort of see your way around British politics a little bit, and so you can read this reading with a little bit more of the context. It should be good reading for you. Again, the things to watch out for is what changes are happening in the housing market in Britain, and how are those changes supposed to be fueling, according to these authors, how are they fueling a political change in the UK? And then remember, keep in mind always, how does this sort of plug into a backlash against globalization?